Hi, Owl class. It's Rochelle, and I am going to read a book today. So, the book I'm going to read is called The Mitten. And the funny thing about my copy of The Mitten is the front cover is missing. So, to show you the words, I'm going to turn it to the next page. So, here's the words: The Mitten. And this book is written by Jan Brett. So the book, The Mitten, is about, those are my props for later, a boy named Nicky, and he wants to have his Baba, which is another word for a grandmother, make him some snow white mittens. Now, she doesn't think it's a very good idea, and she tells Nicky not to lose the mittens. But when Nicky goes out to play, guess what happens? He loses one of the mittens. So we have to listen really carefully, and we can find out why the mittens will never be the same again, and how Nicky gets the lost mitten back. Okay, so we're going to listen for why the mittens will never be the same and how Nicky gets his mitten back. Are you ready? Okay. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wool to be white as snow. First, his grandmother Baba did not want to knit white mittens. If you drop one in the snow, you'll never find it. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens, and finally Baba made them. After she finished, she said, "When you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound. Then I will look to see if you still have your snow white mittens." So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and was left behind. Uh-oh. A mole, here's the mole, who was tired from tunneling along, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. There's the little tiny mitten and the little tiny mole. And over here, you can see a clue about which animal is going to come next. Soon, a snowshoe rabbit came hopping by, and he stopped to admire the beautiful mitten. He saw it and he wiggled in feet first. The mole didn't think there was enough room, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, that's the word for feet, he moved on over. Okay, you see the clue? Next, a hedgehog came snuffling along. Snuffle, snuffle. Having spent the day looking under wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move it into the mitten to warm himself up. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with somebody covered in prickles, they made some room. They made some room for the mole. So, how many animals are in the mitten so far? There is, I said the wrong thing. There's a mole and a snowshoe rabbit and a hedgehog. 3 animals so far. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl was attracted by the commotion. and he swooped down. And when he decided to move in, the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog grumbled. But when they saw the owl's shiny talons, they decided to let him in. Now there's an owl in there. Woo-hoo-hoo. Up through the snow appeared a badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, and when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb. So they gave him the thumb of the mitten. Do you see how full it's getting? Ooh, there's no room in there. It started to snow, but the animals were snug in their mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and the fox came trotting by to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. That's another word for sleepy. The fox poked his muzzle in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. So let's think back. How many animals are in there now? There's a mole, a rabbit, a hedgehog, an owl, a badger, and now a fox. There's 6 animals in there. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Look at that big animal. A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten, all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. The animals were packed in as tightly as could be. But what animal would argue with a big giant bear? The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and bulged to many times its size. But Baba's good knitting held fast. That answers one of our questions. Do you remember at the beginning I said to listen for why would the mitten never be the same? Why do you think? What's happening to the mitten in this book? Is it the same size as it was before? No, not when it stretches and stretches to fit all these animals. At the beginning of the story, it was small enough to fit on Nikki's hand. But now it's getting stretched enough to fit a big, giant bear. Now, let's think about what our second question was. How does Nicky get his mitten back? Let's listen. So the bear stretched into the mitten and it got really big. Then along came the tiniest animal of all. It was a meadow mouse, no bigger than an acorn. She wiggled into the one space that was left in the mitten and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. Oh boy, look over here. Nicky is ready to go home, but he's realizing, I only have one mitten left. The bear's nose began to tickle because there was a mouse sitting on it. It started to make him sneeze. Achoo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the sky and scattered the animals in all directions. Nicky was on his way home when all of a sudden he saw a white shape up in the distance, flying in the sky. It was his lost mitten. He found it. So that answers our question. How did Nicky get his mitten back? How did he get it back? Well, the bear sneezed and all the animals flew out and it went pew into the sky. That's how he got it back. And he ran to catch his snow white mitten. He saw Baba's face in the window. First, she looked to see if he was safe and sound. And then she saw that he still had his new snow white mittens. How do you think she's feeling, though? Can you see? Here's one mitten. It's really big. And here's the other mitten. It's really small. Nicky brought the mittens back, but one would never be the same. If only they knew what happened to that mitten, that there was so many animals that were all snuggled up inside of it. Okay, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'll see you soon.